For 3 weeks in May, the world is treated to art in the form of professional cycling, cutting through the most beautiful landscapes and hallowed grounds. Steeped in history, the Giro d'Italia has, for our money, been the best Grand Tour on the calendar since the beginning. It entrances you with its infectious passion. The Italian tifosi adds so much to the race, and you can see it in the way the Contenders race, with heart and with soul. It can be chaotic. Snowstorms can cancel stages can be protested, and tempers can flare in the peloton more here than anywhere else. That's the charm. See, the Tour de France is a juggernaut, and more importantly, a brand. The Vuelta a España is great racing, but always feels like a forgotten cousin. The Giro is a blend of top-level talent and an event that feels like the race is first, and the advertising, the commercialization, is a secondary need at worst and a necessary evil at best. What matters is what happens on the roads, along the Amalfi Coast or on the slopes of the Alps. Everything has happened on these roads, from the most tragic moments to illusion-shattering reality, ones that will never be forgotten. When a race goes on for a century, the hope is that the 100th edition will be special, that'll exemplify the ideal of what the race should be. The 2013 Tour de France, the 100th edition, was not very exciting or dramatic. So, 2017 is approaching, the year of the 100th edition of the Giro. The Rue was announced in October of 2016. With the centennial celebration in mind, the course designer's task had 3 layers to it. First, they had to honor the country itself. Second, it had to pay homage to 100 years of history and the great Italian champions of cycling. Finally, and crucially, it has to be the trigger for exciting, dramatic racing. They've done all 3. The race opens with 3 days on the island of Sardinia, where humans have existed for over 20,000 years, and, somewhat more recently, it's the birthplace of Fabio Aru, winner of the Vuelta a España in 2015 and a rising Italian superstar. After 3 days of relatively undulating terrain and a travel day, the race heads to the very south of Italy for a Stage 4 mountaintop finish atop Mount Etna, an active volcano. The next few stages are flat to hilly, and Stage 5 visits another Italian star's hometown, this time finishing in Messina, where Vincenzo Nibali grew into the shark, winning the Giro twice, including in 2016. It's Stage 9 where the riders face their next mountaintop finish, this time on Blockhouse, a staggering 13.2 kilometer climb that was first included in the Giro 50 years ago, when a young Belgian by the name of Eddy Merckx took the first ever victory. After the brutal finish, the riders will have a well-earned rest day, and then are thrown back into the fire with a hilly 40-kilometer long time trial. These are rare in Grand Tours nowadays, and it feels like an homage to time trials of old, like ones Indurain would dominate. The final week of racing, the last 6 days, are hellish. Stage 16 has the riders climb the Mortirolo, a Category 1 climb where the gradient reaches 16%, and then they have to climb the Passo dello Stelvio. The Stelvio is a fearsome climb, the second highest paved road in Europe, with 48 hairpins on the northern side, and it's an incredible thing to witness. This year, the riders will witness it twice, as for the first time ever in Giro history, they'll be climbing the southern side of the climb as well, making for a record-setting, brutal day in the saddle. The rest of the week is more brutal climbing through the Dolomites, and it all comes to a close on Stage 21, a 29.3 kilometer time trial, taking the riders from the Monza racetrack into Milan. In 2012, it all came down to the final time trial too, and Canadian rider Hagedal won the race on the very last day. The hope of the organizers, and anyone who loves dramatic storylines, is that history will repeat itself here. At best, the course only makes half the race. The rest is up to the riders to put on the show. The contenders this year are all cut from a different cloth, all coming in with something to prove. First, those who live and die by 200 meters at a time, the fast men. The biggest one here, in name and stature, is Andre Greipel. He's won 6 stages in total at the Giro, 3 of them coming in last year's edition. He's coming in with good form, fresh off a victory at the Tour of Turkey, and will be the undisputed team leader, aiming to win a few stages here and build towards the Tour de France. Now in his mid-30s, Greipel is also trying to hold on to his ability to be at the top. Every year, it gets a little harder, and the young guns get a little faster. This year, there's 2 young guns in particular that everyone is watching. First is the diminutive 22-year-old Australian, Caleb Ewan. This will be Ewan's second attempt at the Giro. Last year was his first attempt, where his best result was his second place. He already has a Grand Tour stage win back in 2015 at the Vuelta a España. The prediction is there's only a matter of time before he adds a lot more to that tally, and this could be the launch pad to do it. The other phenom is Colombian Fernando Gaviria. Also 22 years of age, Gaviria racked up consistent results in 2016, but this will be his first Grand Tour. A stage win at this year's Tirreno Adriatico, essentially a week-long Giro, shows his form is good and that he can compete at the top level. A stage win here would show that he's ready to fight for the sprinter's crown. What draws the eyes in the Grand Tours, what really elevates the drama, is, of course, the general classification battle. In an ideal race, there should be a handful of contenders, all at the same level, going back and forth in battles on the mountainsides and in the time trials. This year's general classification field is absolutely stacked. The favorite is the nation's hero, Vincenzo Nibali. Nibali has won all 3 Grand Tours in his career, including 2 Giro d'Italias. Winning this year's edition would make him one of only 8 men to win the Giro 3 times. Nibali's coming in here on a brand new team, and it's to be seen what the team support looks like. Outside of an overall win at the Tour of Croatia, Nibali has had a quiet start in terms of his 2017 results. He's either extremely on, racing with panache, or he's just a member of the pack, barely notable. But the Giro always brings the best out of him. Tom Dumoulin is an expert at time trialing and can hang in and compete on the climbs with the best of them, even taking a win on a summit finish at last year's Tour de France. The long time trials on this year's Giro course suit him perfectly. That final week in the mountains will be very hard for a man of his size. He's 6'1", but if he comes in with a good race weight and can pad his lead before those critical climbs, we could be looking at the first Dutch winner of the Giro. That is, if his national compatriot Stefan Kruijswijk doesn't win instead. Kruijswijk came in agonizingly close to winning the Giro last year. Heading into stage 19, he was in the lead by a huge margin, 3 minutes with only 3 days left. On a descent, Kruijswijk comes into the corner a little too hot and crashes into a snowbank, tumbling over the bars and damaging his bike. His team car isn't there with the spare to quickly swap out. He'd end up losing over 4 minutes, and at the end of the race, couldn't even hang onto the final podium. The Kruijswijk searches for redemption this year and a prayer that he did not waste his shot. A lot of riders have a similar sentiment. People that have been tapped as future Grand Tour winners and for who, for one reason or another, have not been able to deliver. This is the case for Frenchman Thibaut Pinot. Since he first won a stage of the Tour de France in 2012, at the age of 21, the French media has tapped him to be the first French Tour de France winner in decades, putting incredible pressure on a young man's shoulders, a regular occurrence over there. For his part, Pinot has done everything he possibly can to rise to the occasion, snagging good GC results in numerous week-long stage races, and winning at Alpe d'Huez in 2015. Last year started strong for Pinot, finishing top 5 in the final standings at 6 different stage races, but an illness ruined his Tour de France hopes. He's doing things differently this year by targeting the Giro, his first time ever at the race. Maybe a change of scenery and less pressure from the home newspapers will do well for him. There's one more big contender to talk about, but I'd be remiss to not rattle off more names of people we haven't delved deep into here. Mikel Landa from Team Sky is a former podium finisher here, but his results since moving to his new team have been lackluster. He also will presumably be a part of a 2-pronged attack with teammate Geraint Thomas, a man who's reinvented himself as a GC contender. American TJ Van Garderen is a man who's shown promise, and the US fans are desperate for anyone to be able to contend. Adam Yates, a British rider on the Australian Orica Green Edge team, is a young gun coming into his own, leading his team after a 4th at last year's Tour de France, where he won the best young rider jersey. Even after all of these names, the odds-on favorite, according to the bookies, is Nairo Quintana. The diminutive Colombian won the Giro in 2014, as well as the best young rider jersey. 2016 was a banner year for Quintana, finishing on the final podium at the Tour, and then winning the Vuelta. Out of all the contenders, he's had the best results leading into the Giro, with an overall win at Tirreno Adriatico, a prime showing of his ability. The stage is mostly set. There are far more racers here than I've mentioned, over 150 of them, all with their individual stories and motivations. And over the next few episodes, we'll talk about a lot of them as we watch the story of the 100th Giro d'Italia unfold. In the next episode, avoiding the inevitable, speed demons, heartbreak, and the first shot.